to Halifax on a cruise and wondering if you should book an excursion or explore on your own, I'm going to share with you the very best things to do in Halifax, Nova Scotia, along with some tips and tricks that will help you to have the perfect day. Hi there, I'm Ilana from the website lifewellcruise.com. Welcome back to my channel. We recently came back from a Canada-New England cruise, and Halifax, Nova Scotia was absolutely one of our favorite stops. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the 7 best things to do when you are in for the day on a cruise ship in Halifax. And these are going to include some excursions that you could book with a cruise ship, as well as some things that you can do on your own. Now, I'm also going to share with you some of the tips and tricks that you'll want to know for your day in port. Now, before I get started, I did want to mention that if you like this video, if you find it helpful, informative, or enjoyable in any way, then please do give this video a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Let's get started. Now, before I share with you the best things to do in Halifax, including what we did for the day and what I think was perhaps the best excursion ever in Halifax, but I did want to share with you a little bit of the connection that Halifax has with the maritime industry and with cruising. So one thing that you'll notice is when you get off the cruise ship, very close by, you will see that there is a statue of Samuel Cunard. Now, Samuel Cunard was born in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and he is the founder of Cunard. Now, another connection is a bit of a sad one, and this has to do with the Titanic that sunk in April 1912 after hitting an iceberg. While Halifax had sent out 2 boats to be able to help with the recovery efforts, and sadly, 1,500 people approximately perished in that disaster. Well, they were able to bring back over 300 people that unfortunately they had passed away. They brought them back to Halifax. Now, some of the bodies were claimed, but approximately 150 of them are actually buried in Halifax, Nova Scotia at 3 different cemeteries. Now, I have a connection to Halifax, so this day was actually quite meaningful to me as well, but I will share that story with you a little bit later in this video. Okay, so let's go over some of the things that you're going to want to know for your day in Halifax. So first of all, where are you docked? Well, when you arrive in Halifax, Nova Scotia, you're going to be docked approximately a 20 to 30 minute walk from downtown Halifax. So everything is really very accessible, and you can either do excursions on your own if you just want to kind of visit closer by to the cruise ship, and there are definitely things to do, or if you want to do some other excursions, you may want to book an excursion with the cruise line, or you can also use some private vendors. So here are a few of the best attractions and things to do in Halifax, but I do have a little bit of a tip. If you decide to book an excursion that is a little bit further, I will share with you what we did in Halifax that I think is definitely worth it. But what you might want to do is book that in the morning time and then explore on your own in the afternoon. So one thing that you could do on your own that's pretty easy and that is really quite close by is go and walk up over to the Citadel, or you can also take a taxi, or you can take an excursion over to the Citadel. Now, if you do walk, it probably is a good 45 minutes. So you do really kind of have to be in shape, and it is up a hill. It's something really to see if this is something that does interest you. But as I mentioned, it is also something that you can see with an excursion if you don't want to do it on your own. Now, something else to do in Halifax is to visit the Maritime Museum. So some of the tours, you'll notice that the Maritime Museum is included. Now, there is a large section that is really dedicated to the Titanic and to some of the memorabilia, or I guess the artifacts from the Titanic. So if this is something that interests you, this is definitely something to see. The Titanic Cemetery. Now, even though those that were brought back to Halifax that had perished in the Titanic are buried at 3 different cemeteries, one of them is actually open to the public, and I believe there are like 120 or so of those who had perished that are buried in the Fairview Lawn Cemetery. So if this is something that interests you, this is often part of the tour that is part of like a Titanic tour, or you can visit on your own. You would need to take a cab. It wouldn't be something that would be very accessible to walk on your own. Peggy's Cove. Now, this is the excursion that we decided to book. Now, we actually booked this with the cruise line mainly because the distance from the cruise port was approximately an hour each way. And I know the way it is that sometimes on the way back, you do get some traffic, and I really didn't want to get caught in that. And well, we only had a half-day excursion, so probably we wouldn't have missed the ship, but it would give me a little bit of anxiety. So we did book this with the cruise line. We definitely did not regret it. Now, some of the nice things about this excursion were not only that we did get to see Peggy's Cove, which I have to say is beyond anything that you can see in pictures and even videos. So it really is a place to visit on your own, to see with your own eyes, to feel that wind for yourself, to walk on the rocks of Peggy's Cove. But at the same time, this excursion was on a very comfortable coach bus. It was a double-decker bus. We were on the top, which I do suggest because you do have kind of the better view, but we really had a wonderful guide. Her name was Audrey, and she was just wonderful in terms of the history that she gave us about Halifax. I learned so many things that I didn't even know, and if we hadn't taken this excursion, I don't think that I would have been aware of all of it, and it really did make our day in Halifax even better. Now, while the lighthouse at Lighthouse Point or Peggy's Cove is quite spectacular, set on those gray granite rocks and that deep blue sea, it really is something to see when you're there. But it's also set amongst the village of Peggy's Cove. Now, there's actually about 40 people that live there. Could you imagine a population of only 40 people that live there year round? Well, you could walk around this village. You could see some of the different shops. You can go buy a lobster roll. You could go and check out some of the artists that are there. Now, one of the downsides to an excursion like this is we only had probably about an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and a half to be able to visit the area. So we didn't really take time to go have a lobster roll while we were there. But my husband and son did stop in for a hot dog, and they did say it was very good. Now, something that we did is we decided to book the early morning excursion so that we would be able to get back to the cruise port area by about 12:30, and this way we still had a few hours to explore in the area closer to the cruise port, because there are a lot of things that you can see and do on your own right there. And I'll share with you some of the things that we did, including where we went for lunch a little bit later on in this video. The hop-on, hop-off bus. So one of the ways that you can also explore on your own, now in particular in the downtown Halifax area, is that you can take the hop-on, hop-off bus. So this is a really good way to be able to just get off at the different stops that you want to get off at. So including like the cemetery or the Maritime Museum or an area like in downtown Halifax. So this is a really good way to be able to explore on your own and also get a little bit of an excursion or a tour at the same time. Now, I have a little bit of an honorable mention. There are also some different tours that you can pick up right in Halifax when you get off the cruise ship. So as you walk towards the Boardwalk area, you can pick up an excursion that is a boat tour, or you can also pick up like a land and sea tour. So it's sort of like an amphibious bus. Well, you can pick that up as well and get a little bit of a tour of Halifax. The Boardwalk. Now, if you do nothing else when you're in Halifax, if you don't want to do a big excursion, but you still want to really enjoy your day, simply get off the cruise ship and you're going to walk to your right and you're going to walk along the boardwalk. At the beginning of the boardwalk, you're going to see these monuments, these statues. They are really striking. There's just this history to Halifax, and it really is very beautiful, and I think maybe a little bit underrated. This boardwalk area is really so pretty, and you'll see there's a mix of tourists as well as people that really live in the city and are just there in the boardwalk area enjoying their day. So what we decided to do in the afternoon after the tour is walk along the boardwalk, and we decided that we would go for lunch. We would try out some of the different street foods along that boardwalk. Now that boardwalk, I believe it's 1.8 miles of just really a scenic view, as well as these different restaurants and shops that really makes it so enjoyable. Now, because I researched Halifax and what to do, what to eat in Halifax, there were some foods that we definitely wanted to try. Now, some things that you may want to try are Dave's lobster rolls. So you could see that right in the boardwalk area. You may also want to try beavertails. Now, I'm actually from Montreal, Canada. So we have beavertails here. We've eaten them for years, and they're definitely a delicious treat. Now, there is also poutine that you could eat. Now, poutine, just to let you know, is French fries with a gravy on top. and this curd cheese. So it's similar tasting maybe to a mozzarella, but it's got a little bit of a squeak to it. It's like a firm cheese. Now again, I'm from Quebec, so we have had that, and I absolutely love poutine. It's kind of like heart attack in a bowl, so you don't want to have it very often, but definitely if you've never had it before, this is something to eat when you are in Halifax. Now I have to be honest here, we were saving our appetites to try something that we were basically told to give it a try when we were in Halifax, and this is donair. But I need to be honest, donair basically is sort of pita, so it's sort of like a Greek gyro if you've ever had that, or like souvlaki meat but sliced very thin. But instead of having that Greek taste that you normally would have a garlicky Greek sauce, instead it's a little bit of a sweet yogurty sauce, and it just really wasn't to our taste. My son did try it, and it just wasn't something we really liked very much. I cannot say that I recommend it. Now, of course, this is nothing against Halifax, nothing against donairs. So if you've had a donair and you really like it, please let me know what you like about it. Maybe there's something I'm missing and I'll have to go back and try it again. So please let me know if you've ever tried a donair and what you think. Did you like it, or could you pass? Now, something that was not difficult to love was the Cow's Creamery ice cream. Who doesn't love ice cream? So yes, we had some delicious Cow's Creamery ice cream, and that I can recommend. Now, you may want to try those kind of street foods or those fast foods, or you may want to have more of a sit-down lunch. There are some absolutely beautiful restaurants. Now, we decided that we were in the mood really to sit down somewhere, so we did sit down at Garrison's Brewery. We had a pretty good lunch. I had some calamari, my husband had a hamburger, my son had a chicken burger. It was good. I have to say though, I looked over at, I guess, like somebody is sitting near us, like a bit of a neighbor that we talked to, and they had what looked like an absolutely amazing lobster that looked absolutely delicious. So perhaps if you do stop in at Garrison's, consider ordering their lobster. Shopping along the boardwalk. Now, one thing that I absolutely knew that I wanted to do when I was in Halifax, Nova Scotia is get a Halifax t-shirt. So I did get one, but I also wanted to get one for my father as well. And the reason I wanted to get one for my father was that my father was actually born in Halifax. So even though he's now 80 years old, he just turned 80 the other day. He was born in Halifax. He lived there until he was 2 years old, and his family never returned. So it was always a place that we talked about a little bit as I was growing up, but my family just always went south the way a lot of Canadians often do. So we never really went back to Halifax, and visiting Halifax, honestly, it was a little bit emotional for me, more emotional than I would have thought, because I did really realize that as a Canadian, I haven't visited a lot of my own country, and it was really just such a beautiful city. And in any case, when you go to Halifax, I think you will really enjoy it. But it was just interesting to know. I even spoke with the tour guide on the bus, and she was able to tell me about the hospital where my father was born. It's now closed. But as well, the street where my father was born, we were able to look that up. I was able to look up a couple of cousins when I was there as well, just to sort of seeing if they were in the area. And it was just really neat to kind of see that connection that we even had to Halifax. Downtown Halifax. Now, downtown Halifax is very accessible from the cruise port. And the best way to do this, I think, is actually to walk into the boardwalk area, and then from the boardwalk area, keep walking until you cross the street into what looks like more of the main downtown city part. You can walk along the streets, you can go to the different shops, you can actually stop at Halifax Public Gardens, just absolutely beautiful, and you could walk from there right up to the Citadel. We actually walked up, and believe me, this is a very big walk. We actually had to take a little bit of a break on the bench, but it is definitely doable. But I probably would suggest doing that maybe by hop on, hop off bus. And as well, you can stop in at some of the museums, you can take a look at some of the churches, and you can pick up a map right in like the cruise port building. You could find a map of downtown Halifax. So if there are areas that you want to visit, you can definitely do so. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, if you are looking for a souvenir from Halifax, of course you can pick up a Halifax t-shirt like me, but you can also pick up saltwater taffy. At the store where I purchased this t-shirt, they actually sold saltwater taffy, all different flavors. But if you bought a t-shirt, you actually got a small bag of saltwater taffy, so that was good too. Now in the cruise port area, they really have an extensive area that you can shop in, and the prices were really quite reasonable. And something else that's really quite interesting is the Nova Scotia tartan. So if this is something that you're interested, you can pick up a kilt or other things that have the Nova Scotia tartan. Now the Nova Scotia tartan is blue and white for the self-ridden sea. The greens are for the forest. The red is for the royal lion on the arms of Nova Scotia, and the gold is for the province's royal charter. So I hope that this video was helpful for you and gave you some information about the best things to do and see in Halifax, Nova Scotia when you are there for a cruise. If you've been to Halifax, Nova Scotia before, please let me know what you think are the best things to do, see, eat. Please let me know down in the comments below. And if you are heading to Halifax, Nova Scotia on a Canada, New England cruise, either now or in the future, please let me know as well down in the comments below this video. If you did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Bye for now, and happy cruising.